Welcome to Life on Pause, a podcast defining the experiences of being a young adult with cancer. Each episode, we explore issues impacting young adults in and after treatment. Have something to add? Come join us for our next recording. Tonight, we're going to talk about heading back to school with cancer. For anyone who's comfortable, we'll start with introductions and where you were in school when you were diagnosed. I'll kick it off. So, my name is Sammy. I am 28. I was 18 years old when I was diagnosed, so I'm about to hit my 10. Yeah. So I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer. I had just hit college. I was about 6 months into my first semester at Penn State, and I was actually diagnosed at my university health services building. So that was pretty fun. Thanks. I always credit Penn State for that.
My name's Nathan. I'm 21 now. I was 13 when I was diagnosed with Ewing's sarcoma. I had just gotten out of 7th grade. It was actually genuinely the first week of summer in 7th grade when I was diagnosed. And I ended up missing all of 8th grade, but I got back into school, ready for high school.
My name is Corene. I was 16 years old when I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. It was February of my junior year of high school. So at that time, I was thinking about prom and thinking about what were my plans going to be going into college. And it happened at a very, very busy time of my life.
When it happened, did you disclose your diagnosis to teachers and classmates? And if so, how did you tell them?
So for me, I was supposed to go on a school field trip that Monday. For biology club, we always did like a big field trip. The prior week, I had gone to the doctors because I thought like my shoulder hurt so bad. And it got to the point where I couldn't put my book bag on it. So that was on that Friday. We had gone to like my PCP and then we went for blood work. I got a chest x-ray that night and they called and they were like, you can either go to Geisinger or you can go to Hershey tomorrow morning, but like you need to go. So that was Saturday. And I had to like my high school boyfriend, he was like very supportive and was there. And I had to like obviously call out of school on Monday because I was getting my lymph node biopsy. And everyone was kind of like, they had thrown out the word cancer, but we weren't sure. And then Wednesday, I remember Dr. Barber had called me and was like, we need to set up a family meeting. And I remember I just asked him, like, can you tell me if I have cancer? And he was like very quiet. And he was like, you have Hodgkin's lymphoma. And I had, of course, like texted all of my close friends. And by the time that I had walked into school in the morning, I feel like everyone knew. So it wasn't, I by like no means was trying to hide it at all.
My doctor was also Dr. Barb when I started.
Oh, he was the best. Missed him so much.
He was great. I was really upset when he had to leave. I wanted him to stay. I had been having headaches, and that's what brought about going to the ER. And I had been having headaches during the final weeks, like week and a half, 2 weeks of 7th grade. And so the people around me knew that like I was having these headaches. And like my close friends, like the one I can think of, at least the one that I spent the most time with, was kind of seemed concerned. But it was all right until I went to the ER and the doctor said, oh, it's not anything. It's just a migraine. And so you can, medicine, treatment, whatever. You're never going to have a headache again. But a week later when I'm back, they did a CAT scan and said, you're going to Hershey. But that was during the summer. And so I ended up just missing. I didn't really tell anyone I didn't like text. I might have texted a couple close friends about it. But like, I think my mom probably did most of the talking to like the school and the summer camp, being like, hey, my son's not going to be in camp. He's, dealing with this. So I guess I really didn't tell very many people. But I do remember when I got back, during the school year, like during my 8th grade school year, I did get a big stack of kind of like get well cards. I guess my history teacher for that year that I would have had, said it to the class and they all made cards. So, I mean, then those people knew. But I didn't really ever like reach out and be like, hey, this happened. Obviously, family finds out through, mom talking on the phone, dad talking on the phone. But I never really specifically told a lot of people. Just kind of happened.
Mine was kind of strange because I was like in sort of a transitional period where like my high school friends knew because I was much closer to them, but I was fresh into college. So I barely had a friend group there. I knew like nobody going to college. And so my fledgling friends in college, I just was getting to know them and I was like, hey, by the way, I have cancer. So it was sort of a crash course on like, are you in it? Are you friends with me? Are you gonna stick it out? And they did. Credit to them. And as for like telling the like teachers, there was no like discussion between all of my teachers. I had to like at the beginning of each semester like schedule a meeting with each of my professors and like sit down with them and be like, give them the talk. And basically be like, hi, so I'm undergoing treatments. I might miss classes. I might be out sick. I'm going to need you to have to understand, here is my like essentially pass from the university for this. And it was always so awkward. And all of these professors, like 50 and 60 years old, just seeing their faces go immediately white, seeing this like 18-year-old girl come in and be like, why is she meeting with me? Like, it's the first week of class. And then having her be like, by the way, the big C word. So always like super awkward having that talk with them. What do you wish your teachers would have done differently, or what your teachers would have known?
One of the most, I would say like every single teacher was so supportive. Every single teacher was so understanding. I think they all knew that like I technically didn't have to go to school. I could have stayed home, and I pushed myself because I didn't want to be the person, like the cancer girl that sat at home. And in between classes, I would go to the bathroom and I would throw up, or I would just be so drained in class that I was like there, but I wasn't. And I think they all knew that, but I still was there. And specifically my one English teacher, Mrs. Dirk, like and I still have it. I still have the box she gave me that said hang in there with like a little beach scene that I would just like tactilely play with. And she would make me brownies, and she would just like really take a second to check in and be like, hey kid, like what's going on? And that I really, really appreciated. And I don't think that there was a teacher I think there were some teachers who I personally never had as a teacher who didn't know how to react or say, like, they knew who I was, but I was never their student. So it wasn't as if they could say like, hey, this is, going on. I don't know if there's anything I wish my teachers would do different. If anything, I wish that, and I think this is just like a high school thing, I think we very much live in a culture where, unfortunately, like bullying and being unkind and the pressure to fit in, like I understand that's been around forever, but I don't think that my fellow peers as a whole truly understood like the gravity of my situation and what I was going through and how much that impacted me and like the things that I was experiencing. And I wish that there may have been just like an open conversation. Like, I'm not saying there needed to be an assembly or anything like that, but just like a a heads up that's like, hey, listen, so-and-so is coming back to class and this is what they're going through, or these are things that we should consider. And I understand, like, I was only one student in a sea of other peers, but I think that sometimes it was just really hard to be able to relate to just being in high school, you know?
Yeah. I don't think I agree. I mean, for the most part, I think all my teachers did, they didn't do a bad job, right? Like, there wasn't anything that I had a professor do that didn't, well, now that I think about it, I did get called out one time as someone who had been in a, like, I can't even remember what the context was, but the teacher asked me, like, to speak on how I felt about some situation that I guess I had some say in because I had had cancer and had been through that trauma. I didn't like that. I was like, I said something. I said whatever I said because she asked me in front of the class, but I was like, I didn't really feel like I could, touch on that. But other than that, all my teachers were great. For me, I just wish that people would be more direct. Like, people asking me about, oh, why don't you have your hair? But they never say it like that. Or like, what's with the scar? Again, they don't say it like that, but there was always like, they would tiptoe around it until I was like, yeah, let's just have a conversation. Like, if you're curious, just ask. Like, I've told the story a million times. I'll tell the story a million more times. I have it, I can tell.
So it's like you need to post it on your head. That's like,
yeah,
bullet points of what, because it's like literally a rehearsed, like, this is my story. Yeah.
Yeah. And even like, people would be like, oh, I didn't want to assume anything, but I thought this or that. And I was like, well, just ask. Like, you don't have to assume. Just ask me, why are you bald? And I say, cancer. Is it coming back? No, it's all right. But, one thing I did really like, our high school, I think, like many, had a no hats policy in school. And so, well, it was my girlfriend that really did it, but she made me a hat pass because I had a hat pass. Like, I talked to the assistant principal, and he was like, yeah, you can wear hats. It's all good. But I would still get and like, take your hat off. You're not allowed to wear hats. So my girlfriend made a thing that said hat pass, and she got the principal to sign it. Signed B-Rob. Like, he signed it. Great, because I don't know, it was nice. And he actually signed it, then I had more of a connection with him, and I talked to him a lot because of that. So that kind of support was great. But like, again, I think what you said, Corene, about like, there doesn't necessarily have to be a conversation, but like, I would have liked to not have to argue about, I'm allowed to wear my hat, but just whatever. I would take it off, walk down the hallway, put it back on. It's easier than having a conversation.
I had a rough time personally with my professors. The college experience, especially in a really, really large college like Penn State, was not particularly welcoming. The professors did not have a personal, like, connection with me most of the time. Most of the time, they did not particularly care about my excuses. Excuses, heavy quotations. You can't see it, but heavy quotations. Yeah, it was really, really rough. Like, my other classmates, like, they didn't necessarily know. I didn't want to have to explain to myself to every single classmate that I was never going to see again, because college, like, every single semester is different. But yeah, I really didn't have that great of an experience with my professors in college, and I was quite relieved to graduate and be out of that. because it was rough. Suffice to say.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, I was in remission when I had gone to college, but I remember like one of my annual checkups where you do it's like your whole day we're shebang, where you have your PFT, you have your echoes, you have your blood work, you have your chest x-ray, you have like you're there from the morning until at night. And I remember I had reached out to my one professor just being like, listen, this is my annual oncology appointment. Like, I will not be in class today. I will, get the lecture notes from like a friend. I just wanted to make you aware. And very much the response I got back was essentially like, this is college, and however you're choosing to do your journey is on you. And I don't know if it's that there's just like this overwhelming, because there's so many students and there's so many things to worry about where you're very much a number and not just like a person. But it's very easy to feel minimized. And especially when like you're going through this big thing and still going through this big thing. And I think it's really hard for people to understand that when they're trying to like do a million other things,
I was lucky enough that, because when I was, like I said, I got back into school, I was in remission August, and I started school August. So, at first it's every 3 months that you have to go. I was getting MRIs every 3 months, and I was getting MRIs every 6 months. But like, I remember freshman year just having like the pattern of emailing teachers and saying, hey, I'm not going to be in class on this day. Hey, I'm not going to be in class on this day. And it kind of felt like I missed a lot of class, but I don't think I really did. But I just remember like having to think about catching up with work. And I'm glad that it was like high school work, because I can't imagine trying to catch up on college stuff. Like even right now, I'm an RA, and I run the Penn College Benefiting Thon Club, and I'm a student, and I already feel like I don't have enough time. And if I had to miss, multiple classes a semester in addition to what I already do just because of life, I'd certainly be a lot more stressed than I am now. Not to say I'm not stressed now, but
getting diagnosed in the middle of college definitely changed my career path. Getting diagnosed earlier in life, how did that change your guys' view of the future? Did it change your career path or educational path?
For me, I very much so, like I said, I was a junior in college, which is where you're thinking about. I remember 3 or 4 months prior, I was taking my SATs, and I was, prom dress shopping and thinking about where did I want to really consider schools to apply for, because like your junior year, everyone says it's the year that matters the most. And that was another thing when I got sick, is like, I don't want to mess up my junior year. I don't want this to put me back on what I want to do. And I changed my career path 3 different times. Like, I was dead set prior to getting diagnosed. Like, first I wanted to be like a neurologist because I loved the brain. And then I wanted to be a lawyer. And then I was like, do I want to do nursing? And at first I was like, no, because I don't want to feel like I have to give back. If I'm going to do this, I want to do it because it's in my heart. So went to college, majored in political science first, and then found out that there's like more people in law school than there are lawyers who are, very successful. And I didn't like the stats, and I put myself in a situation where if I had to defend something that was against my morals, and that bothered me. So then I changed to forensic chemistry because I was like, I love CSI and I love all that stuff. So maybe I'll do that. And then at the time, like Westchester had lost its accreditation. And then I also just didn't know if that's the kind of work I wanted to do like my whole life. So then I changed again to cellular molecular biology because I was like, I want to do cancer research. Like, that's how I'll give back. And I remember my senior year being in lab, and here I was like by myself talking to these Petri dishes. And I was like, I need human interaction. And when I would go to my checkups, like there's a very profound moment. Like there was a little girl in the waiting room and, you know, we were playing and she was talking to me and the mom was like, you should feel very honored because she doesn't talk to anyone but like us and her doctor. And I very much always felt a pull back towards that. Like oncology's always been a passionate like force in my life and something that I've always wanted to do. And I knew at that moment that I was kidding myself. But at that point in college, it was like, do I drop out and repeat my potential 4 years to do nursing? Do I drop out and do an associate's program and then still have to go back for my bachelor's? Or do I finish out and do an accelerated degree program, which is what I did. So I graduated with my bachelor's in cellular and molecular bio. And then in the next year went to Wilkes University for my bachelor's in nursing. And then actually, 2 days ago, I took my last final for my acute care pediatric nurse practitioner. Yeah, so just boards left. And then that's kind of like the end piece of my, not end piece, but working with pediatric oncology patients and survivorship and transplant and everything. That's like my heart and soul. Like like my career path is more than just a force professionally. It's really who I am as a person.
That's very cool. Like I said, I was 13. Like I had just turned 13 too. My cancer diagnosis was in, I guess it would have been June of 2016. And I had just turned 13 in March of 2016. So I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Like at all. And I don't even know. I kind of just went with, kind of how I went, like I dealt with the cancer. I just like rolled with whatever was happening. I just kind of rolled with whatever I kind of went with. And so that's how I ended up in aviation maintenance. Like I said earlier, I want to be a pilot, but the FAA didn't like that I had cancer 5 years ago when I tried to be a pilot. Or when I was trying to take lessons, but that was 5 years ago. We're going to work on that. But I definitely always kind of wanted to give back to the people that supported me. So that's why I got involved with Penn College's Thon. And that's why I've been a part of Thon every single year of college. And, I wasn't a part of Thon as much in high school, even though Thon at our high school was massive. I just think I wasn't at that point yet. I wasn't ready to do that, but I regret not being part of it now because I think I would have liked it a lot, even though high school me probably would have thought about, I don't want to join something. I don't want to do something. I don't want to, I just want to read. I just want to watch YouTube, but to giving back, that's why I want to work for Penn State Hershey's medical helicopters. That's why I want to work on those, it's a way I can give back while also, working with my hands and working with aircraft, which are two things that I love, right? That's how cancer led me to be where I'm at now.
For anybody listening that is not in the Pennsylvania area, Thon is a gigantic fundraiser at Penn State. It is a 46-hour, no sleeping, no sitting dance marathon that benefits the Four Diamonds Fund. That is the thing that funds Penn State Hershey that allows people like Nathan and Corene and their families to not have to pay for treatment, which is incredible. And fabulously, local high schools and middle schools and other schools also do mini-thons. So very cool.
And I danced. I danced 2 years ago.
Lovely.
There you go.
It was a lot of fun. It was terrible. It was a lot of fun. It was so rough, but I loved it.
I was a part of the dancer relations, which is one of like the support peoples a few years, and it was a witness. A sight to witness.
I wore a hole through my Vans. But only the left foot. The right foot was worn, but it didn't have a hole in it. Maybe I favor my left foot when I walk, but it was so much fun.
If you ever want to tune in, there's a live stream every like second or third week of February. Very cool.
Yeah, it's the weekend. This year it's the I think it's the 17th to the 19th, but don't call me on that. But I'll be there.
As for me and how like being diagnosed changed my career path, so I got to Penn State. I was on main campus, and I was initially enrolled in chemical engineering. And I'm not going to lie, it was super inconvenient to be diagnosed with cancer. But it did give me an out because I got into chemical engineering and I realized I hated it. I got into calculus and I was like, oh, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. And then I got diagnosed and I was like, this does give me a chance to take a semester off and kind of reassess my options. And I was like, maybe God was giving me an out. So, in that semester off, when I was doing treatment back home, I was like, what do I want to do? Because I do want to go back to school, and I probably went back a little bit too early. I was like thinking about what I wanted to do, and I was like, I do like science, but I don't think I want to be locked up in a lab all day, like Corene. I was like, I like talking to people. And also a big part of my treatment was like, I had to do this iodine therapy and I had to do this insane diet for like weeks and weeks at a time where like, I like couldn't eat anything basically. It was wild. And so I had to like really, really focus on like what I was able to eat. Yeah. And so I was like, that could be fun. Maybe I could go back and like be like a registered dietitian. And so then I went back and did that. And I was like, oh, this is fun. I get to combine talking to people and science. And I get to do like biochemistry and stuff like that. So cancer did definitely change my career path. And it gave me an out.
It sounds awful. It's another bad cancer joke. When I was in calculus in college, God, if there's anything that I hate more, it is calculus. Math has never been my strong suit. Now I can do like med math, like nursing math all day, every day. But calculus and like when we start adding letters into it, I used to joke and be like, I think I would rather have my worst week of chemo than do calculus.
I've made the joke, in aviation, you work with it's just how it is. You work with a lot of chemicals that are really bad for you. And I always say, well, I had cancer once. I can't get it again. It's like chicken pox.
When you had brought this up before, Nathan, about how like the FAA was like, oh, well, you had cancer, so we're not going to let you fly. Like, have you guys encountered anything else? Like, obviously, like, yes, like we're not allowed to donate blood and like, we can never.
I donate blood all the time.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a different when this was back when
it's a cancer.
Yeah, I think because I had blood cancer.
That
Hodgkin's is considered a blood cancer. But like there's certain things where it's like, no, you can't do this. Like, have you guys encountered anything? Like you just said with like the FAA, like have you encountered anything where it's like, well, you had cancer, so sorry, this is a hard no.
There was a big push for like the bone marrow registry. And I was very excited to like get all of my family and friends signed up for that. And because I had the radiation done, they were like, hard pass, get out of here.
I actually, prior to getting sick, like, so my dad, like he's an Air Force veteran and like very much just like considering college and the cost of everything. Like I very much was considering doing just like Air Force Reserve. And because I had gotten sick going into my senior year, it's a hard no. It was a hard, we're not gonna do that. And I was like, okay.
Yeah, I think the only thing that I've run into, because every time I go to donate blood, they say, it's a question, have you had cancer? And then I have to say yes, and then I have to have the discussion every single time. yes, I had this cancer, but they didn't care last time I donated blood, and they didn't care, the 16 times before, or however many, I think the only thing I've run into is the FAA saying, no pilot.
One of the things about me is that, like, I can't tell. I am, like, pretty much constantly tired.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, is this just, like, a forever thing? And, like, my boyfriend used to make fun of me. He's like, how can you sleep, like, 13 hours a night? And then a few years back, like, he got hurt pretty bad. And he was like, I would just sleep and sleep and sleep. And then he was like, I realized that you're missing an organ. You're injured for the rest of your life, essentially. And he's like, your body is tired, like, forever. And he's like, and that's the way that he, like, rationalized it. But I was like, am I just forever tired? Is this just a lifelong thing? I hope not.
I don't know. Sometimes I feel like that, but also sometimes not. Like so far this summer or this semester, I've felt very tired, like every day. But I have a feeling that it's more likely that I am stressing out too much about, like, work and that kind of stuff. So we'll see we'll see if over the weekends I improve, and then it'll just be, I need to start doing a better work life balance.
I actually looked up at one point because, like, let's be honest, you're in college, like, you're very much it's this newfound independence of balancing, like for me in college, I was a waitress / bartender as, like, my job on top of school. So, like, I would be working sometimes till 2 a.m, or maybe I was not working and I was hanging out with friends late, and then I had class. So I think I feel like even if you're not in college, I feel like everyone goes through a period where their sleep schedule gets really messed up in, like, your early 20s. Yeah. And so after that, when I had gotten my first job at CHOP as a nurse and I was working night shifts, like, I found like night shift just worked so much better for, like, my life, essentially. But then I just was hitting this wall of perpetual exhaustion. And then I would, like, go through awful periods of insomnia. And I actually looked it up and found that if you underwent chemotherapy, you're actually at this, or, like, essentially, like, anything that has impacted your potential sleep cycles, like, even with, like, Sammy, like you and your thyroid, it's called hibernation insomnia. And essentially what it is that, like, your body, after a traumatic event or after, like, it's exposed to certain, like, toxins, your circadian rhythm essentially gets, like, altered. So then you could be so tired and you could be so exhausted that you want to sleep and then you can't. And then all of a sudden you have periods where, like, you know that you should be awake, but you can just sleep. And there's no rhyme or reason.
I had a period of just insane insomnia towards the end of, like, junior year of college. And that also because I was in the clear, essentially. I was still in monitoring for treatment. But I like didn't sleep for, like, days. And, like, even when I did sleep, it was just for a few hours at a time. And I was like, this is insane. Like, I'm like in the clear now. Like, I should be fine. I'm just like, but, like, I'd, like, go and, like, get, like, some, like, sleeping medication and, like, figure all of that out. And, like, but, like, that also threw a wrench in, like, my academic career. Like, so interesting that, yeah, that explains a lot.
Yeah, my sleep schedule is definitely wacky. Because as an RA, we have to be on duty certain nights. So every Monday, I'm on duty from 8 p.m. to midnight. And then, like, this week is especially bad because I'm on duty on Friday and Saturday. And on Friday and Saturday, it's from 8 p.m. to 2 a.m. So, and I also have I have class at 8 or 8:30 Monday through Thursday. So, and sometimes I have duty on Thursdays too. So, like, it's all jumbled. It's not regular. And, I don't know. So far, I'm handling it. But we'll see how it is like in 6 weeks. We're halfway through the semester. But I've never had issues getting up in the morning. Like, generally, if my alarm goes off, I just get out of bed. I sometimes have trouble going to sleep, but I don't know. I've been blessed by being able to just get out of bed.
What additional challenges did cancer add to your school experience?
I feel like aside from just going through it as a junior 16-year-old in high school, I think it just was the challenge of like now dealing with the aspect of this thought of like trying to thrive and survive. And as a 16-year-old, I don't think that's something you really think of. Like, I think that you're very much, I don't want to use the word skating by because that's not fair to say. But you're going through the motions of you're in high school, you're going through high school, you're about to embark on this journey post high school, whatever it is that you choose. And for me during that time, it was this challenge of I was just figuring out like who the hell I was. And now I'm having to figure out who I am on top of coping with this big life event that I've never had to cope with something of its magnitude. And so I think it just was the challenge of really like how many people at 16 can say they're honing in on who they are as a person. Like you are never the same person at any 2 points in your life, but to have to really like sit down and to have to ground yourself, because if you don't know what the future holds. I think that was a very big challenge to have to deal with.
That's hard to say. I don't know if it really did. And I'm sure if my mom was on, she'd say, "Oh, of course it did. This is how it did." But I don't know. From an insider looking out, I think I had, for the most part, a really normal, average high school experience. And for the most part, also, like, people didn't really, like, when I was like, "Oh, yeah, I had cancer," people would be like, "Oh, wow." Like, it wasn't like it was a big thing. I mean, it was a big thing, of course. But I always was just like, yeah, it was cancer. It was all right. I wouldn't recommend it. But like, it was just
5 out of 10.
It was, and it just never, I don't know. I feel like I wasn't affected as much as I probably was. Even like people asking like, "Well, how did that feel?" And I was like, like people say, "How did it feel when you were told?" And I was like, I just kind of was like, "Okay, well, what are we going to do now?" So.
And as I say, I think it's a really hard thing for people. Like in the moment, you're just going through the motions. Like you're just like dealing with this news and you're trying to get through it. And I don't think people necessarily in the moment realize that like you yourself may not have actually come to terms with what that feeling was or is, because you literally are just, you're going through it.
Yeah.
You have a bear coming at you. You're not thinking about the fact that, oh, I have to tell somebody that a bear attacked me. You're thinking about the fact that I have to run from a bear.
Yeah. And along that lines, I would get the line like, "Oh, you're such a fighter. You're so strong." And I'd be like, I was a 13-year-old kid sitting in the hospital bed, watching YouTube and reading books and, eating. And like, that's all I did. And watching Netflix. I didn't fight. I wasn't strong. I just said, "Okay, what did the doctor tell me to do? All right, well, I'm going to do what the doctor says." Except for drinking water when I had esophagitis, or I don't know. The radiation was on the back of my head and then down my spine, so I had a racing stripe. And, obviously there's the racing stripe, which is really just awful sunburn, but it was also in my throat. So like for a week and a half, I couldn't swallow. Like I was spitting in a spittoon that I carried around because it hurt too much to swallow. And when they said you have to drink water, I was like, "No, I'm good." But other than that, it's just like, I just followed what the doctor said.
like you said, like you don't feel like you were being strong and brave because you were sitting there and just doing what you normally would do with a kid. But I think that like bravery and your armor and what you put up doesn't necessarily have to be like exploited in this like big fashion where it's like you're marketing the fact that you were brave and everything. I think that the fact that you were doing it is just like a testament to your bravery, you know?
I like to think of it as like I picked the really short straw out of the bunch. And the fact that I kept that short straw and made it through that short straw. Yeah, I didn't want the short straw, but I continued with the short straw. Maybe I deserve a little bit of respect, but I didn't choose it necessarily. I didn't want it. Final question. What were your favorite parts of school before and after treatment?
If I had to pick before I got sick, my favorite part was just navigating the essentially like getting into your groove of high school. Like I felt like as a junior, you're at the point where you're like not just the baby freshman that has no idea what they're doing. And you're about to like go into your senior year and potentially go to, and like then like whatever you choose to do after your senior year. So I was just really excited to be like in the thick of being so close to the end, you know? And like I just got my permit, so I was learning how to drive, and it was my first prom, and I was just looking forward to all the things that like 16-year-olds look forward to. And then I would say if I had to pick my favorite thing after treatment, honestly, I don't know if I've ever like actually said this out loud or thought about it, but it was like the solace I found in either just sitting in the guidance counselor's office during like which my guidance counselor, Mrs. Lobenstein, like she was absolutely amazing and always there and like as well. And there were time periods where in between classes, I just would like go in there for a hot minute to decompress, or I would go to the library and just not want to be at lunch or not want to be around people. And that's sad to say, but I felt like I was going through this like I don't want to say post chemo depression, but just this post chemo figuring out my life. Like I just went through this crazy thing, and now I'm supposed to just pick up the pieces and be a 17-year-old in high school like it didn't happen. And I'm supposed to like I'm writing these college essays, and like I always say that having had cancer is like tell us a fun fact about yourself, or like tell us an experience. But I felt guilty playing like the cancer card. And so it was in moments where like I didn't have to be around the noise of trying to fit in, that then became my favorite.
I think that my favorite part of school before cancer, not that it didn't happen after, but after I had cancer, most of the relationships that I had in school the way I had school relationships kind of changed. Like before I had cancer, I would hang out with my buddies like a lot. And like we would, and like the group, like not just like my group of core, like 4 friends, but like we would all as like big groups would hang out a lot. And, I loved that. And like we'd have sleepovers all the time. My one friend was like, you're my second son, or you're my third son. You're here so often. But after kind of most of my relationships were more like in school. I didn't hang out with people outside of school as much in a way. There was just a difference. And I definitely enjoyed how I hung out with my friends beforehand more. Not to say that I didn't after. But after, I don't know. There was definitely a time in my freshman year where I was like, yep, I'm the cancer kid. I had cancer. That's me. Which, looking back, I'm like, oh, that's kind of cringy. Being like, I made it like my whole personality for like a year. And I'm sure I had fun. I did have fun, like being like the cancer kid. But looking back, I'd probably do it again if I was 14. But looking back as a 21-year-old, I'm like, but it's hard to say. I definitely enjoyed my high school's mini-thon when I finally got involved with it. That was really great and really fulfilling, and I really liked that. And I was upset that I had, as a younger kid, been like, nah, I don't want to do that. That sounds lame. I wish that, future me, present me could go back and be like, come on, man, just do it. Like, it'll be fun. But you can't. But I don't know. I think, Corene, you said something about maturing faster. I feel like I did because of cancer, and then people were thinking would think I'm older. And I think that's just when you, like you said, when you have cancer at a younger age, you kind of just have to suck it up and grow up and be mature about it. And, I feel like I kind of differentiated myself from my peers subconsciously in some ways. Even still, I mean, I'm sure you guys can attest to, in real life, you're always dealing with people. You're always going to deal with someone that kind of never left the middle school idea of how things should be working.
There's still an entire group of, I tell this to like everyone, even like my first grade niece. Like today, she called and said that some girl was like laughing at her because she rolled up her pants and they were laughing at her bug bites on her legs. And I was just like, sweetie, like it's like sometimes people are just not nice. And unfortunately, they're never, that goes all the way through adulthood. Like I wish, like we're 32 years old. You're still holding grudges, or you're still being so negative about things that happened now 14, 15 years ago. And it's like, you have children, you have all these beautiful things in your life. And then the fact that you're choosing to focus energy on the disdain that you have for another human being, like what is that teaching your children? Like what is that doing for you as a person? And it's sad. It's so sad. And I don't think that a lot of people can put into perspective what it's like to be on the other side of that.
And that's why I'm glad I had cancer. Big quotes there. But, I feel changed my perspective on life and people in a good way. It's so easy to, I can't say that. There are so many people that kind of act like that, where it's like they never had that experience to see it from the other side, and then they can never connect that later in life. And so I'm grateful that I was able to have that experience, and I feel like I'm a better person because of that. But won't recommend having cancer.
I told my friend in college that like I'm not going to play into the trope of like the all-knowing, the wisest like cancer survivor. Like that's not me. I'm not the trope. But this has allowed me to see through a little bit more of the BS of life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Like, I think it is just so humbling, and it does provide you with not even just different perspective. It's a different way to like think. It's a different way to live. It's a different way on how you plan doing things. And I don't wish that anyone, like had cancer by any means at all. But I wish that people who were so quick to judge, or so quick to say a mean comment, or so quick to essentially like minimize the experiences that someone else went through, if they were going through it, how would they feel? How would that, if it was someone that they loved, or if it was their own child, or if it was themselves, like how would that alter their perspective? And I think that kind of tying into our, like our talk today, it's like, while everyone is sitting there and getting excited about going back to school and like, what book bag are they going to have? Or what's your first day of school outfit? Like we were thinking like, all right, am I going to wear a bandana or rock my bald head today? Like, am I going to bring the Zofran in case I get nauseous during class? Or like, am I going to be okay without my emotional support water bottle? Like it's a completely different just track.
It's good. I'm grateful that I had my experience because it kind of gives me the perspective, you know, it helps me think about like, does it really matter what Jimmy down the street thinks about my braces on my shoes? Like, does it really matter? No. So why am I going to worry about it? And you know, that goes on into the rest of your life. Like, who cares if you look silly walking down the street? If you're having fun, have fun, you know? I think that having this experience has allowed me to be more myself and not worry about what other people think.
Thank you for listening to Life on Pause, supported by Four Diamonds. Ideas or suggestions for future episodes? Feel free to share them with us. Make sure you like, subscribe, or follow us on YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Join us for the next recording. Until next time.